Okay, friends, so I decided to loop the last two measures into one video for a couple reasons. First of all, you're probably sick of watching, 5 videos about a metric. But also, I don't really have a problem with measuring FTE or measuring pass rates of our classes. I think I have a problem with how we're making the decisions as to when things should get flagged. So as I've been kind of looking through Tableau and going over the data, a couple things have popped up at me. So I figure we'll use this video to kind of touch on those. A big one I want to touch on right now is the idea of these thresholds, the benchmark and critical thresholds. Let's take a look real quick at those. And there's a lot of stuff in here that I'm sure we can talk more about in RSC meetings, like why we exclude certain things or why we include certain things, like college now, contracted credit, special study, all those things probably can get talked about. I want to focus mostly on the mathematics of these measures. So I'm going to simplify this a little bit and make it so that we're only looking at the math. There, that's better. Okay, so one thing that jumped out at me, and I think we should talk about this in RSC. If you look at the 4 metrics, 3 of them use the previous year's numbers. Average students per section, expense revenue, and course success all use 2017, 2018 numbers. But the FTE uses the lowest percent change over the last 2 years. Why? What's the difference? Why should that one go back 2 years where the other 3 only go back 1? I don't know the logic there. That's the first thing that I think about. And the next one I've mentioned a few times in the videos I've already made. I don't understand where these numbers come from. The 75%, 50%, 1.5 times, 2.5 times. I don't know where those come from. My opinion is that they should be tied to some measurement that the college is already using. For example, for cost over revenue. Those numbers for cost over revenue should somehow be tied to something fiscal in the college. It shouldn't be something that we're picking kind of out of the blue in RSC. My concern about the threshold numbers that we're using is that we're picking numbers that guarantee sets of courses will trip them. That's not the job of a threshold. It is possible to come up with thresholds, benchmarks, whatever. It's possible to come up with numbers such that no sets of courses will trip any of them. It's just that we don't have any of those yet. Nobody says we shouldn't. We just don't. So that's something else I think about. And one last thought as I kind of come to the end of this video about the idea of these benchmarks, these thresholds, these limits, whatever. I think that they're so rigid that they end up false positiving, meaning flagging sets of courses really for no reason. Let's take a look at what I'm talking about here. Let's look at FTE rate of change as another example. So if we scroll through and take a look at programs, take a look at what I call the gummy worm behavior of their data. They're constantly changing, orange, blue, orange, blue, orange, blue, even within a set of courses over a 5-year period. Why is that? Because the threshold we've picked is so close to their normal behavior that they end up triggering it every other year, or sometimes multiple years in a row, but very often every other year. That seems weird to me. Why would they be triggering it so much? Same thing goes with transfer programs, just like CTE. I call these false positives because the programs generally are pretty stable, but because the threshold is picked so close to their normal behavior, it ends up tripping constantly. So what does this all mean? Well, there's kind of 2 things on my mind at the end of this. First of all, we're stuck with these measures through the fall of this year. We have to use them because that's already on the books. But that doesn't mean you can't be paying attention to the concerns that I brought up in these videos. When you look at the data, look for those little inconsistencies that happen. But also, next year, we're going to be tasked with coming up with maybe additional or new or replacement measures for RSC. In my opinion, we should have more than just 4. We should have lots and lots and lots of measures. But really, in my humble opinion, the true challenge are the thresholds. Where do we pick those to make sense for the college and to be fair? And that's where I often think of Albert Einstein. Not everything that counts can be counted, and not everything that can be counted counts. The fusion between fairness and mathematics, because this committee is kind of about math at the end of the day, right? but it's also about getting help to departments that might need it. But we got to make sure that when we're making up these measures, we're actually looking at departments that need help and not just departments that fall under some arbitrary cut. Thank you for your patience as you worked your way through my videos. I hope you learned something. I learned a lot by looking at the data, and I hope when we all put our heads together, all that time spent looking at these spreadsheets and in Tableau is going to be for the best. See you at the next meeting.